In this short video, we're going to learn how to determine a firm's shutdown price. Let's suppose that Heritage Glassworks operates in the perfectly competitive market for glass candlesticks. Their total cost function is 50 plus 10q minus 2q squared plus q cubed, and their associated marginal cost function is 10 minus 4q plus 3q squared. Our goal is to determine Heritage Glassworks' shutdown price. What do we need to know in order to answer this question? Ideally, we have the total cost curve. Sometimes we'll also have the marginal cost curve provided in addition. Of course, we can always find the marginal cost curve from the total cost curve. What's the process for solving for the shutdown price? It's a two-step process. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the average variable cost curve equal to the marginal cost curve and solve for Q. Obviously, we have to find the average variable cost curve first. We set those two things equal, and what we find is the Q that minimizes the average variable cost curve. Once we know the output that minimizes average variable cost, we can evaluate average variable cost at that output to find the minimum value of the average variable cost. Just by way of a reminder, the shutdown price is defined as the minimum of the average variable cost curve. So this process that we follow is all about finding that minimum point. We know that the marginal cost curve cuts through the average variable cost curve at its minimum point. So we solve for the intersection between those two curves. That's step one. Once we know that Q value, we just evaluate the average variable cost at that Q value to find the shutdown price. Okay, let's solve for the shutdown price. Here's what we know. We have our total cost function, and this question is nice because it also gives us the marginal cost. And we're looking for that shutdown price. We know the process we're going to follow is we have to set average variable cost equal to marginal cost. So first we have to find the average variable cost. A little bit of a reminder, average variable cost is just defined as variable cost divided by Q. And the variable cost can be plucked out of the total cost function by looking for the terms that have Q in them. So I'm going to highlight the variable cost. It's this part of the total cost function, not the 50, that's fixed costs, but everything with a Q attached is a variable cost. So we could say that average variable cost is 10Q minus 2Q squared plus Q cubed, all divided by Q. And then we could rewrite that as average variable cost is equal to 10 minus 2Q plus Q squared, where I am canceling out one of the Q's from each term in the numerator. Once I have that average variable cost, I take my marginal cost, I set it equal to average variable cost, and this is going to allow me to solve for the Q that minimizes the average variable cost curve. So I have 10 minus 4Q plus 3Q squared is equal to 10 minus 2Q plus Q squared. Typically in these sorts of questions, there's going to be quite a lot of canceling and collecting of like terms. So the first thing I'm going to notice is that the 10s cancel. I can subtract 10 from both sides. From here, there's more than one way you can approach this question. I'm looking at sign and what makes the most sense. So I'm going to collect my Q squared terms on the left-hand side of the equation and my Q terms on the right-hand side. So I have 3Q squared, and then minus the Q squared over here gets me 2Q squared. And then I have on the right-hand side minus 2Q. And then I have to move this minus 4Q over by adding it. So I have minus 2Q plus 4Q, which is just 2Q. From here, remind yourself what you're searching for. You're trying to find Q. So I'm going to divide both sides of my equation by 2Q. And when I do that, what remains on the left is just a Q. The 2's cancel. The power on Q is reduced to 1. And over here, these terms both cancel, and we're just left with a 1. So the final conclusion here is that Q, the Q that minimizes average variable cost, is just equal to 1. Once we know that the minimum point on the average variable cost is where output is 1, we substitute that value back into the average variable cost curve to find the shutdown price. So we can say that the shutdown price, PS, is equal to average variable cost evaluated at 1, 10 minus 2 times 1 plus 1 squared. That equals 10 minus 2 plus 1, which is 10 minus 1, or 9. So the shutdown price is equal to $9.